The best part about summer is enjoying it with friends and family. Whether you're traveling, gardening, staying active, or spending time with family, wellness is built through daily habits. Azure Well offers vitamins and supplements focused on purity, potency, and consistency. Compare what's in your cabinet to Azure Well. Shop today at azurelivingwell.com. That's AZURE livingwell.com. These products have not been evaluated by the FDA and are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Okay, welcome to Emotionally Unavailable. Just so you know, I'm probably a little more unconventional than the other hosts, and I've discovered I really talk too much. So just be forewarned. I'm really excited to have this conversation because the episode that just came out today was really more me and a friend talking about her struggles with rumination and overthinking. And we're just talking that out a little bit because she struggles with post being with people she cares about, and maybe she like jumped to rescue them or whatever, and they had kind of maybe a poor response. All of the rumination and overthinking that can happen after that. So when I looked at your profile again this morning, because I kind of never know what's going on, and I was like, who am I recording with today? I went and I looked and I was like, oh, I don't believe in coincidences, so the timing is just beautiful and perfect. I'm so excited about it. But I wondered if it would be okay if we started with your background, kind of whatever parts you want to fill in with how we got to here with the work we are doing.
Okay. I was someone who ruminated a lot. I've done that a lot in my life. I've spent too many years, probably wasted too many years on rumination. So that led me to find out how can I help myself, but also how can I help my clients, because they too are doing the same thing. And by a coincidence, I learned about a therapy called MCT, metacognitive therapy, and I just applied for a job at a clinic where they practice that. And I soon realized after a couple of times, this is something completely different. My clients come back to me after 3 sessions telling me this was completely life-changing. So that made me then go, I would like to try this on myself too. And I then realized that this is really something unique. I'm not selling MCT. That's not why I'm here. But so that's how I learned about how to let go of ruminating so much. And I'm excited to tell you about it. I'm a clinical psychologist, author, and I'm based in Denmark. So I talk to a lot of people on a daily basis who struggle with rumination and worry.
Well, I wonder too, because my big struggle, like obviously there's so many factors in rumination and overthinking, but probably my biggest struggle was that I did not very often have awareness that I was stuck in a loop. I had to come up with physical cues to cue me in to the fact that because my overthinking was oftentimes the things I wish I had just said in an interaction. And so I could hold on to that for days. But I'd be fighting with someone in my head about stuff that happened in childhood, literally, but I wouldn't even realize it.
Yeah. I think what you're describing is something a lot of people can recognize. And that's because if we're used to ruminating, we get used to that. It's not like when we worry. When we worry, we immediately notice the anxiety that comes up. So we become quickly aware that I am worrying about what if this fails? What if this goes wrong? What if he doesn't like me? Blah, blah, blah. But when we ruminate, we don't have this anxiety reaction. So we can actually go on and ruminate. And that feels like just a normal part of thinking. So that's why we're not always so aware of it, unfortunately.
Yes. Well, and something that I've been hearing too a lot is, well, that's just me. And that's not going away. Like it's a very fixed personality trait. And I'm like, that's what?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it makes sense. If someone's been doing that for many, many, many years and they don't even notice that they're doing that. And suddenly you're telling them, actually, this is something you're doing and you can stop. It feels both impossible and scary at the same time. I just had a client telling me, I don't know who I would then be if I stopped worrying and ruminating like that. But I'm curious,
Uh-huh.
how did you then become aware of your own rumination?
How did I? I think I was becoming more curious about my responses to my environment, and I was trying to be more grounded and realizing like I'm operating on autopilot 90% of my
Right.
life.
Mhm.
And so I realized, oh, I'm spending a lot of time like well, it really started because I was in the middle of a mental health crisis. And I remember all of a sudden it took me over 2 hours to get ready in the morning for work. I
Mhm.
could not get I have never worn that much makeup, and I could not get my makeup done because I was so not present, and it was taking me hours. So that was part of what I was
Right.
trying to discover. And so then
Mhm.
whenever I said, okay, here's a physical cue, neck, back, shoulders, if they hurt, you're probably
Okay.
overthinking. And so that once I started the physical cue, then I'm now realizing this is how I'm spending every minute of every day.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Okay.
It
Wow.
was really overwhelming. And I guess I can remember feeling like it was an insurmountable task at a certain point. I must have received some sort of information that made me think it wasn't. I don't remember right this second what that was, but I must
Right.
have.
Right. Right. It is overwhelming and it feels like you're trapped in your own mind. You can see from outside this is not really working. This is just a lot of negative stuff. It's not even helpful if I'm battling something in my mind that happened years ago, but I cannot stop.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you find that it's maybe one of the most key things that some people have to overcome, and that once that part is worked out, so many other parts of their lives get better?
100%. So
Yeah.
if
And
you
was that the
look at
case
it,
for you too? Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
sorry, yeah, yes, absolutely it was because I realized that not only was I ruminating about stuff that had happened earlier, I was also ruminating about my relationships. I was also ruminating about the future, about how I felt, how things weren't going to get better. So, and that rumination also kept me from being very productive, to meet deadlines, to do the things that I wanted to do and the goals that I set for myself. It was difficult to stay consistent. So there were a lot of areas in my life that were affected. And that was due to
Um,
the rumination. And this is also what I see with my clients. So someone comes in because they have depression. Another comes in because they have trouble with their relationships. Another comes in because they feel so stressed and burned out from all the work and all the tasks and to-dos. But in the center, in the core, it's always the stuff that they're doing inside their minds, the rumination and the worry that maintains that. And nowadays I rarely look at how can we fix your life situation. If there's overthinking, I go straight to that with permission from my clients, of course. And then we work on reducing that. And once we do, they come back and they tell me, this has changed for me. I feel lighter. I feel happier. I'm more present with my family. And I'm also able to be more productive. I can pursue goals. They don't all come back telling me all these things that they can, but usually they can so many different things that they were not able to do before. And we've only touched on how to reduce rumination and worry. So yes, 100%.
wow. Let me ask you this too. I just remembered this. Well, and this can be something that I still struggle with, and I'm wondering if this is a part of overthinking and rumination, or if this is a whole separate like stress response. Is
Mhm.
flooding a part of that? Like the second something happens, there's like 100 thoughts at once about how it's going to negatively impact my life in some way or another.
So flooding as in being overwhelmed by all those thoughts that suddenly pop up?
Yeah.
No. So
Okay.
there's a difference between having thoughts and then choosing what to do with them. Scientists don't really agree, but they say we have thousands of thoughts coming up in the mind every single day. Portion of them are negative. So it's not very normal and common to only have positive thoughts and feel calm. That's a myth, by the way. Even those who feel functional and normal, they still have negative thoughts. So that's part of being human, and that's fine. They pop up, they last a couple of seconds, then they actually go away on their own. The mind takes care of thoughts for us. But we can then choose to do different things with those thoughts that pop up. Let's say, what if...
Hey guys, it's me. Emotionally Unavailable is produced 100% in-house by me with no team. So if this show has ever helped you and you want to give back, subscribe to the Patreon. There's several different levels with different benefits in each. Check the show notes and you can see what each tier subscription will get you. There's also lots of fun things coming down the pipeline for the Patreon subscribers. So get in early. You can get a workbook, you can buy merch, you can do any of the things, and all of that supports the show to help it keep going. Really appreciate every single one of you. I love you so much and I can't wait to see what we continue to do together.
I never feel better. Thought like that pops up. I didn't choose to have that thought, but I can choose to grab onto it and then ask more questions in my mind. Yes, what if it doesn't? What's that going to mean? My situation is hopeless. Will this ever change? Why bother? That's the rumination. That is something I chose to do. The thoughts I didn't choose to have.
Okay. That makes perfect sense to me. Okay. So the MCT, I'm curious because the only time I've really heard, I mean, of course because my background is social work. I'm an LCSW. So I didn't have a ton of the psychology stuff. So the science stuff is not, I've learned it on my own, but it's not my education. You know what I mean? But I did do a 7-year stint in education working both. I tried teaching. It was not good. So I moved into school counseling. Also not great fit for me, but that's really the first time I really heard about metacognition, thinking about your thinking. And so if I'm being honest, I've only really just started hearing about it in this sense, not because I'm sure it's been around forever, but like that's not something I hear a lot about. So would you mind? Is it okay if you explain that a little bit?
Of course. So metacognition has been around for some time. You're absolutely right. And mostly we've heard of it through education and learning, because learning how I learn, knowing how I learn, etc. In this particular case, with MCT, it's about how does metacognition influence how we thrive psychologically? So whether we develop mental illnesses or not. I'm trying not to make it too boring. Metacognition is basically the ability to reflect and monitor and control our own thinking and attention. For example, I cannot control my attention, or it is helpful to ruminate. Rumination helps me find solutions. Or my mind is broken from all the trauma that I've experienced in my life. Or my depression is biological, I cannot recover. These are examples of metacognitive beliefs. In MCT, these metacognitive beliefs are the reasons why we end up ruminating so much about our thoughts and worrying so much about our thoughts. So thoughts are normal. Everyone experiences negative thoughts, but not everyone spends hours and hours ruminating themselves into a hole. So why is that? That is because some of us have certain ideas. We've learned certain ideas about how we should use our thinking. And one of the common ones is, if I ruminate, I can find solutions. If I truly understand what happened with me, then I can move on. So that's the idea.
Oh my God. I feel like that was me.
Yeah.
Well, but it's funny how that can look different in different people too, because some people would say it just like that, and they feel the safest when there's a resolution to something, when they feel like they've gotten to the bottom of something. And then there's other people that really aren't even mostly aware that how often they're doing this, but also just believe they're just an analytical person.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I just like to
No.
analyze.
Yep. It makes me reflective. It makes me thoughtful. I've always been praised for
Yes.
being someone who thinks deep thoughts. I'm interesting to talk to. I'm an interesting person because I reflect.
Yes. Oh my gosh. You just reminded me of someone from my past who it actually drove me a little crazy. And I'm sure it's because I saw so much of myself in them. But
Okay.
it was almost as if everything was a philosophical question to be pondered to the end of the earth. You know what I mean? I know I did that too, but like I didn't always share my thoughts out loud the way this person did. So it just was like, easy to judge, I guess. But yes,
Yeah.
like that, and truly I have been complimented on my analysis. But this is where I got really stuck even recently, is realizing, okay, I've shifted from this internal dialogue about myself and my not having said something or wishing I had done something different, to it looking totally different and it being about, I guess, rationalizing, analyzing, pathologizing other people's behavior so that
Wow.
I could feel better about it, like an interaction, so that I'm not fighting. And I could get to the resolution much quicker whenever I'm like, well, they're just, and not in a, I'm going to like put up with it, but more to console myself, like that, reminding myself not to take other people's behaviors personally.
Okay.
But I was kind of skipping that really important step of like, it's okay to have your feelings hurt by the fact that they did that. Like, that doesn't mean you're taking it personally, and feel the fact that it hurt your feelings. Don't get into this thought loop about them. And I didn't even realize I was doing that.
Right. Like an intellectual form of intellectualizing, verbalizing what's going on so you don't get in touch with maybe you were actually hurt by what happened.
Yes. It's
Yeah.
funny how many things we will do to try not to feel a feeling. I'm the worst at it. I'm the worst.
Why is that, do you think? What's your perspective on that?
Um, I think, I mean, obviously it was a protective factor from CPTSD, but also I really think it's the human condition. I don't think that it's natural for us to know how to experience a feeling without somebody teaching us, Like, at least that's been my
Yeah.
experience, and maybe I really am just surrounded by people like me, and that would make sense. But yeah, I haven't really met anyone that knows how to let a feeling happen instead of dismissing it or avoiding it or escaping it or numbing it.
Right. Right. So it's a skill that we learn how to regulate ourselves, how to be with the feeling when it comes up. And if we haven't
I
learned
think
that, we
so.
become scared. Yeah, I think so too.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. And I was the scaredest person ever. I'm not saying that like I'm 100% over fear, but I have this awareness now that I know how it feels in my body when I'm afraid. I think that was the big difference, is that all of these things were happening and I just didn't even know.
Mm-hmm. So now you're more aware.
I think so. Yeah, I think that's been the key for me. It's not
Yep.
always easy to integrate, but at least the awareness is there, which
Very.
obviously makes me feel a little more in control.
That's it, because then you have a choice, right? If you know what's going on, you can then at some point choose to do something differently when you're ready for that. Rather
Yes,
than
but
if you
you
don't know
said
what's going
something earlier about when the thought happens, you get a choice over what to do with it, right? Okay,
on. Yeah.
what do you say to the people who truly believe there is no choice there,
Mm-hmm.
that they cannot control what they're doing with those thoughts?
I really challenge them on that because everyone has some experience with, probably plenty of experience once they think about it, with leaving a thought alone and choosing not to dwell and ruminate. So we go back. Okay, let's come up with some examples. Are there times where you, even for a couple of minutes, were actually able to not ruminate on the fact that you're a useless person, whatever the thought is? Oh, yeah, there was one time I got distracted. Someone called me. Okay, what does that tell you? Well, it didn't really feel like my choice. I love when they say that because then I challenge that even more and I say, okay, let's do an experiment. Let's test that. Let's see if you can leave a thought alone and not ruminate about it. And then we do a lot of fun experiments in the session where we start with neutral thoughts and then see if they can stop ruminating about those. And then we eventually graduate to the more triggering thoughts. And that's a good way to provide my clients with new experiences that, of course, they can. It is possible.
Oh, I love that. I love that because that's really, especially like I have a friend with some of the, like a severe end of OCD. And it really pains me sometimes to watch her suffer, but she's not interested in anything I have to say about it, which is totally fine. I get that. But I do know that she believes it's beyond her control. And it makes me sad because I'm like, suffering for no reason.
Yeah. If you just
But
try
even my
this,
friend yesterday, she said, that's just me. And I was like, it's not just you. It's everyone. You can figure it out.
yeah. I think the more awareness we bring to these topics, and that's why I so wanted to come on your podcast and I want to share this message, the more it will help people realize, oh, maybe this is not just something that happens. This is not just to me. It is something that I do and I can learn to do something different. So hopefully that gives a lot of hope.
Yeah. So what are some of the ways that we can start just a little small step towards grabbing control of the thoughts when they happen?
Right. So first step is to become aware. If you don't know what's going on, you have a hard time steering in the other direction. So becoming aware could just be to notice once in a while, ask yourself, I wonder what I'm doing in my mind right now. I'm feeling heavy, I'm feeling anxious, I'm feeling nervous, I'm feeling insecure. Okay, that's an interesting cue. I wonder what I'm doing in my mind right now. Am I just thinking happy thoughts? Am I planning my vacation? Or am I actually dwelling and ruminating about how worthless I am? Okay, once you can recognize that, then the next step would be to decide to take a break from rumination. And one cool way to do that is to allow yourself a rumination window of 15 minutes every day. So 7 p.m., that's my rumination window. I can go crazy and go ruminate all I want during that time. The rest of the day, I'm going to take some breaks from rumination. The thoughts might still come up. They will. All these negative thoughts that I usually ruminate about, all these memories, all this stuff. But I'm going to say, not right now. There's a thought. I'm not going to ruminate about it right now. I'm going to do that later in my rumination time. And then you go about your day and you might want to repeat that a couple of times because thoughts do keep coming up. But once you get to your rumination time, and if you still feel like it, then you can sit down and ruminate all you want for those 15 minutes. But you don't have to. It's not mandatory.
I love that. People think that that is avoidance, and it's not. It's just organizing.
Yes.
I love that.
Organizing. I like that word. It's organizing your response. You're not avoiding your thought. Yeah. You're just choosing when you respond.
Yes. And now I've been having to learn this in grief. And there are times when I absolutely need to feel it right that second. And then there are times when I say, I don't really want this to derail the next few hours of my life. And so I'm going to look at that picture, watch that video, whatever it is. You have full permission and authority, but let's get our day done first. Like there are times when I get to make choices like that. And so I do. But there is this small tinge of like guilt, like I'm doing something wrong, like I'm grieving incorrectly, or, you know, the perfectionism stuff. And I have to like console myself through that too. Like, no, you're not going to ignore it or avoid it. We're just putting it away for later.
Yep. I'm just organizing my response.
Mm-hmm.
That's a perfect
because it will derail your whole day.
Of course it will. And I think guilt is very common when it comes to doing that. If you're grieving, if you're having those thoughts, but that's also something you can postpone thinking about for later. I'm going to ruminate about feeling guilty for later.
Yes, yes. I think I've gotten really good at that actually. But for those people who maybe forget to come back to something, because with grief it really does need to be addressed. And so sometimes I'll feel like I didn't move it through correctly, and I just start to notice how much more agitated I'm getting with people, and just real irritable. And at that point, then I know I have to go take a shower and just be still and let whatever happens happen. Usually a good cry, but it's not forced from me thinking. It's literally just clearing the space. Whereas, like, I have a pretty full life. So if I never wanted to think about it, I wouldn't have to think about it that much. Because I am really good at avoiding if I want to. I don't want to, but I have opportunities to. So then I have to force myself to go be still and just, be in my body and let however that wants to move, I let it move. But I think there's so much trial and error in all of this. And if you don't need to feel perfect at your healing or any of those things, grieving, anything, then you just understand it's all trial and error. And some days you're going to be really good at it and other days you're not,
Yep. Yeah. But what you're saying you're doing, that's the perfect example of noticing how much control you have. You cannot control feeling the grief and having all these thoughts and memories, but you choose when to deal with that next. That's 100% control.
Yeah, agree. And I wish I could find softer ways of delivering to people. You really can control it, because most of the people that I'm working with, I ask them on the first session to just trust, like, that I know what I'm talking about. Like, that's the first step, is a little bit of hope, a little bit of direction, and trust that I know from personal and professional experience that I know what I'm talking about. So I don't get that much resistance in the long term. But let's say with friends, or even my 23-year-old son, or, sometimes people on the podcast, there is this level of resistance that can be pretty harsh sometimes, that I'm like, well, I must have said it wrong. I don't know. I don't know why you're so mad about that.
What does the resistance sound like? Like, you don't know me, of course I can't, or how does it go?
Yeah,
That's
pretty
how it
much.
goes?
Like, yeah, pretty much. I mean, it's like whatever the words are imply that I don't know what I'm talking about, because I don't know them specifically, that everybody's not the same, and that they have tried so many times, but it doesn't work. And then I'm like, but you just haven't gotten the information that resonated with you. That's all. Like,
Right.
because I do think
Exactly.
that some of us have to hear things a certain way for it to make sense.
Yep. Yep. Or maybe be ready for when to
There's that
receive it
too, yeah.
and when to try it in our lives. There's also a good time and a bad time
Yes.
for that, right? Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, but can I be honest? Sometimes I feel like an asshole for saying this. I really do. But there are times that I just go, then why are you in therapy? You know what I mean? Like, if you said you're ready for change. And so this is like the most fundamental of changes. And I recognize it seems to be your biggest issue, and so you think it's the most insurmountable. But there are times, and I think that it's also because of my own grief, my tolerance and capacity are a little lower to in working with people in resistance. That's just the truth, because that doesn't give me energy, it drains me, and I have to be so careful about that. But I do feel like an asshole for saying that out loud. I really do. But there are just times that I'm like, okay, then what are we doing here?
Well, yeah, why is that? So because I don't know. Do you ever ask people that? Or is it just now you're sharing that with me and the audience?
No, I've never asked that because it feels really rude. But
Yeah.
there's also people that I recognize I've had a few clients that really are so lonely. And so they will use the therapy time as like, time to chit chat and whatever. And that's just not really the type of therapy I want to do. Like I used to have a great tolerance for that, but the last 7.5 months, it's really important to me that I'm in conversations that energize me, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. It can be draining because you so much want to help that person and you have all these arguments, you have all this stuff you're backing it up with, and they just go like, yeah, no. But they
Yeah.
keep, yeah, yeah.
But also, I feel like if I had ever gone to therapy, I would have been the person saying that.
So maybe there's a right time and
Yes.
maybe sometimes all we need is just talk. So I'm very open about this is the type of therapy I do. We're not going to go back into your childhood. We're not going to go into your problems and solve them. This is how I work. And there are still times where people come to me and they just want to talk. And there was a guy who told me, you know what? I just want to talk because my wife doesn't listen to me. I just want to have someone to listen to me. So it's fair enough.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and say that. I like that he knew that. You know what I mean? I
He was
like that
aware.
he knew that a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah.
Because then you're really like, you know exactly what to expect out of that, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And I think
Exactly.
that's part of my, like, I recognize most of this is a me issue. And especially, like I said, because of grief, it's changed my capacity so much, so much. That's my biggest shift that I've seen in myself is tolerance and capacity are just very different.
Right.
And
Right.
in an act of self-care, I just try to limit the type of situations that I'm in that just feel that way, But also, I do really want to help. I really do. And so it can become frustrating, but even like the worst is with my son, where I'm like, okay, but that your overthinking didn't start for no reason. Like it is a protective factor. So that means there has to be something that can shift that. And I just haven't found the right way to say it for him yet. So I'm hoping that this conversation, of course he doesn't listen to my podcast, but I'm hoping that I can give him some of your words so that he will be like, "Oh, that makes sense actually."
Yeah. Or I know I keep coming back to this, but is he ready to and open to receiving that information now, or is he somewhere else in his life?
Let me think. Well, I mean, there's definitely a possibility he's not ready that he doesn't feel safe enough to let go of that.
Okay. Yeah. Hopefully that'll.
Especially because we are very much living like we're at the prime of PTSD right now with our loss. So I could see that serving a function really well for him. I mean, I already had CPTSD from childhood, like that I was, already working through. And then it just confirmed like every worst fear I've ever had. So the hypervigilance is very real, mostly seen through worrying about my animals. It's really weird.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
never felt panic the way I do regularly now. Most of the time, I don't, if I couldn't get to a resolution really quickly by knowing for sure things are okay, I don't even know if I could control it right now. Like I have not found a way with any of the tools that I'm very aware of to calm any of that. And it's just because it's like it really is full blown panic. But with him, there's the PTSD aspect of like flashbacks, but he
Yeah.
really did a lot of ruminating and I think still does. I think it's better now. He seems a little better about this, but his rumination, I mean, in general, he's always been a ruminator about himself and worthiness and all of that. But this particular rumination is more like remorse, regret.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
not ready maybe to let that go because he would feel guilty
Right.
for doing so. That makes sense. That makes perfect
Right.
sense.
Yeah. So yeah, he really probably isn't ready, but that's not going to stop me from saying something. Well, because whenever he tells me the feelings and the thoughts, I'm like, yeah. And then later I try to be like, hey, just so you know, but that part just never really, he appreciates me, validating and whatever, but then the later reflection period is not always. There are some things he's listened to that I was surprised about, but usually.
Okay. No. Sometimes it's better to just be the example. I know it's easier said than done, but if we show up and say, you know what, I've dealt with this and I feel so much different. This has actually worked for me. That usually inspires our surroundings better than telling them what they should do. No one wants to hear that. I don't want to hear that.
No,
So
me neither.
Yeah. So maybe, yeah, that could be a way.
Yeah. So is there any other actionable things that our audience could take away today to really something that really teaches them I do have control?
So think back after you hear this podcast, think back to 3 or 5 experiences in your life where you have actually been able to stop ruminating or worrying about something, even if it was for 5 minutes or 2 minutes. Maybe you got distracted by something. Maybe someone called you. Maybe you had to go attend to your child because they fell and cried, whatever. And you suddenly stop ruminating and worrying. That's important information because that shows you that maybe you have more control than you think. And then I would recommend just practice. So make it a habit to postpone rumination and worry for later. Make it a habit starting tomorrow. Just test it out for a week and see what that's like. You might be surprised that you have a lot of control.
And do you recommend starting with like a small window that you're putting it off to at first, like so that it feels more manageable, or do you stick with like at the end of the day, or either or? Do you think it matters?
It doesn't matter. So most of the time, most people are surprised that they can actually wait till the end of the day. But let's say you're experiencing very intense anxiety or panic or OCD, and you have this thought popping up that's really scary for you. Then it might feel too overwhelming to save that for later to think about. Then you can say, I'm going to wait for 2 minutes. So while I make my coffee, I can have this thought being in the back of my mind, but I'm going to continue making coffee and wait 2 minutes before I go in and then ruminate about this thought and see what that's like.
Yeah. Okay. So trial and error, just figuring out what works for you.
Yep. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Yes. And before we wrap things up, how do you feel like getting a hold of, learning to control overthinking has improved your life?
How I feel that? So I've noticed that I've become much less dependent on how I feel before I do something. There are days where I don't feel like waking up, having a long day in front of me, all these things, all these obligations. I don't feel like it. I don't feel motivated. Sometimes I feel nervous before doing something. But because I've learned through this that it's just a thought, it's just a feeling. These are experiences that are very brief, they come and go, and I can choose not to ruminate about them. That has helped me to just do things regardless of how I feel. Not the same thing as gritting my teeth and just don't take care of myself, but be less dependent on how I feel. That has helped a lot. So my productivity has gone up, but also I feel that my default mood level is just nicer. I don't feel down. I don't have these huge dips. I'm just more like not plain, but okay.
And not as heavy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Not as heavy. Life is not heavy, hopeless place. Doesn't feel like that anymore. it feels okay, cool. I can manage.
Yeah, I love that. Well, I've loved having you today. Thank you so much for being here. Tell us where we can find you.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed this conversation. You can find me on YouTube. I have a YouTube channel called my name, so Shang Olsen, and metacognition and mental health. I talk about
Ooh,
these things. I share tools from MCT. I talk about what we've learned about thoughts and feelings that may not be true. So go and check it out and see if you find some help there.
Awesome. And now you mentioned earlier you're an author?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so do you have like a website where we can find your stuff?
Yes, I have a website. My books are in Danish. They have not been translated yet.
Okay.
Yes, unfortunately, but I have a book about overthinking and relationships. So not just romantic relationships, but how overthinking actually affects our communication and behavior across different relationships. That's unfortunately still in Danish, but at some point it will be translated to English. So yeah, hopefully that will be soon. I really have heard a lot of good feedback from people reading that book.
Yes. Let me know when it's translated. And actually come back. Whenever that gets, you can come before then. But
Too.
for sure when it's translated, let's at least then have another conversation because I would love to promote that for you, but yeah, I love talking about that. So feel
Yeah,
free. Feel
me
free
too.
to sign back up.
Thank you. I would love to. Thank you so much,
Okay,
Melissa.
good. Yes, thank you. Okay, I'm going to press stop if you will hang out for 1 sec. All right, that's it from me. So make sure that you check out the show notes for links. And until next time, let's all just keep swimming.
INDEPE and cut.